What's up, everybody? Hope you all are doing well today. I want to make a quick mention. First and foremost, I apologize for last week in my recording. I didn't really realize that I wasn't putting in a screen capture. So that's why there was just audio and no video. If you are still following along for the final project and you want to look at that video, just go on to your assignment sheet and you can check it out there and listen to the audio. That would be a very easy way to go about viewing that particular video. So I do apologize about that, but at the same time, I figured it out. Just a simple screen capture issue that I was dealing with, which I think is going to be working now. So we'll see how that goes. I also wanted to mention I have gotten an email or two about kind of touching base on a little bit of applicability with some of the concepts that we're talking about, especially with your final project and what you're graded on. And while I want to focus a lot on what you're going to be using over the next couple of years in terms of understanding social media and social media patterns, I also recognize that understanding the short goals of the next month is going to be very important as well in terms of finishing your final project. So what I want to talk about today, and I'm going to go over it pretty briefly so as not to say too much of your time on this, is talking about a little bit of the use and applicability of virality. So that's kind of the subject of this week's conversation. And I pulled up this area. It's called the diffusion of innovations model. It's a very popular marketing model. And the reason that I pulled this up is because there is a really interesting concept of what happens when something goes viral and how social media, how people that work with social media should approach this. So you see here, and you've probably seen this before at one time or another, you see here about the kinds of people who get on a trend. So this is all about understanding trends. So when something becomes popular, whether it be a product, whether it be an idea, whether it be something that's a meme that, again, can go viral, you're going to see this diffusions of innovation come into place. And so you see people that are innovators. These are people that cool hunters is the title of the job. Look for basically anybody that stands out against the grain using technology or a product that isn't used very often. People who are creating memes, you can look at it as like TikTok dances or whatnot. And then as they become popular, they get into this early adopter stage. So that means more and more people are taking note. They're starting to recognize that maybe this dance, maybe this product, maybe this service is becoming, more widespread use, pretty popular. And then it becomes a very popular trend to where everybody's doing it, to the point where it's almost more acceptable to be in the conversation than to not be in it at all. And this early majority and late majority really comes into play here of people using it because they are in this conversation. And then the laggards, this is usually the people that are late to the game, that when they start to imitate whatever this fad was, again, whether it be a service or whether it be a product, now we have folks that ultimately are way behind. And if they do it, it would be considered, out of date, cringy, whatnot. People would say, I don't know why you're still doing this. We're still very much away from this at the time. So what I want to mention with this is two separate things that I hope that you will find helpful. One is understanding how memes work and virality works. Typically speaking, within a diffusion of innovation, it's not necessarily meant for memes, but the cycle still is a very similar process. That you're going to have people that adopt a meme or create a meme. You're going to have people that join in very early. It might be seen as something to where the majority take note, and it becomes this very fast cycle. Now, when it comes to things like news coverage, there's been a lot of research that's indicated that there's a 30-day period of a news story, for instance, going from the innovator of someone just picking up this story and covering it to the laggards of this is no longer topical or what we would call salient news. It's no longer considered important, and that people aren't going to be paying attention to this as much. It's just not something that people are talking about anymore. So, again, what we see is for memes especially, this is a much faster model here. It still works in many cases to where if it kind of reaches this hump up here, you are going to have a significant amount of people that have paid attention to it, maybe follow you on Twitter, or whatever the platform may be, and then ultimately dies down. So these usually don't last very long, and you actually see a lot of people that create content that will get past this stage, but ultimately it's a fad that dies down after a while. It's very hard to kind of keep going in this diffusion of innovation as a influencer here. So this is where you see people like Mr. Beast, for instance, I think he's out of Greenville, North Carolina. He does a lot of stuff at ECU, to where, honestly, I mean, we're probably around here in the Mr. Beast stage, but he keeps doing stuff that is of high level, good editing, and spending a lot of money to help people. And this is kind of where that influencer comes in. Whereas most viral content will go through a very quick cycle, phase out. They will get a lot of content on their channel, but ultimately it's only there because of that one video. So I think it's Bill Wirtz, for instance, that did History of Japan and History of the World. Great videos, but ultimately this is what people were there for, not the rest of his material. So yeah, you're going to get some people that really liked it, but for the most part, it was those long videos that people enjoy. So what's the applicability here? So I ran a little bit longer than I wanted to. Applicability, when we start talking about it, gets into a term that we use quite frequently in marketing. It's called newsjacking. So what I would recommend is that when you are creating a social media plan, understand that you should always have a contingency budget to say, I plan on spending this kind of money just in case either a crisis happens, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, or a significant event that you can say, I can use this for my brand because somebody did some crowdsourcing. There was a viral video that was not detrimental to my brand, or there was a viral video that was similar to my brand, and I'm just going to happen to use it. So two examples that come to mind, and then I'll kind of stop it here. Ocean Spray was probably one of the best examples of the person who was on a skateboard jamming out to Fleetwood Mac and taking a swig of cranberry juice from Ocean Spray, which became a crowdsourced viral hit. People who were innovators started doing this, and it just became a whole thing that everybody was doing it. And all these social media teams started getting into just regular trends here. So they started kind of approaching this in a newsjacking fashion. Now, the reason I'm circling around this area is because this is when you want to do it. Right when early adopters are starting to go with this meme, that's when you want to be a part of the story. So that way you look like an early adopter as well as a brand. So if you're here or somewhere around here, you're in good shape. Where you don't want to be is between early and late majority, or even worse, late majority and laggards. So, and again, this is important that with memes and virality, this diffusion goes by really fast. So I've often talked about people who have social media jobs are working around the clock because they're always fishing for good memes that are going to be complementary for their brand. Which leads me to my second main point here. I often talk about the Buffalo Bills social media team because they really understand virality and memes. And they also were part of that Ocean Spray ad, but they've done some other things in terms of like TikTok memes that have gone viral and put their own spin on it. It didn't really have anything to do with their brand per se, but what it did do really well is they were able to incorporate something, whether it was the team, whether it was how well they were playing at the time, whether it was something at the stadium. All these things fit together in this particular area that we could focus on a meme that was going around that just happened to work really well for the brand. And again, you can find your own connection, but that's where the specificity comes in. And something that I've mentioned to a lot of you on your papers that I was reading was make sure that you're specifying your content, the how. Focus on the how you plan to do this and be specific about it. It's a good thing to think about for your final project. So, last thing I'll mention for any kind of case study you want to do, whether it be your final project, whether it be your future career down the road, if you want to use social media, start looking at these trends and say to yourself, is this something that is going to be beneficial and applicable to my brand that I can use newsjacking to be able to place myself on this model depending on what beam is going around. And again, make sure it's applicable. Make sure it's not going to be something that will offend or make yourself its own meme, in other words. Understand the meme, understand why you're doing it, because you don't want to bring in people that are going to make you a story. They're called emergent publics, and that can be just as detrimental. So David Meerman Scott, who was one of the people that talked quite frequently about newsjacking, would often talk about playing along. And this is one of the best ways to play along, is to understand virality, understand this diffusion, and understand newsjacking. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Hope y'all are having a wonderful week, and I will talk with y'all soon. Thanks.